welcome in everybody to the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Robbie LaStella here for Inside the AAC. Basketball season is back in action in the American Conference all across the country. It's the best time of the year. We've got crossover between football and basketball. If only there was a part of the year where we got baseball in there as well, and the regular season of everything, so it could just be one big sporting event. But basketball being back is good enough for me because there's just a ton of different storylines to follow, especially early in the season, knowing how tournaments work. Really, anything's possible until the very end of the tournament run, until you get eliminated from that. So it's fun to follow every team, especially in a conference like the American where there's a lot of talent. I mean, some people like to dog the American, and that's fine and whatever, but there is a lot of talented players, and I think this year, I don't know necessarily if the non-conference schedules of a lot of teams will make this, more than a two-bid league, but, I think we'll see a potential scenario where later in the year, one team could get hot and make a UAB type run. Right now, after one game, I don't know if UAB is going to be that team. Yaxel Lendenberg is one of the best players in the AAC. That's undebatable. He's potentially going to be a pro in the NBA next year, but he's going to need scoring alongside him. Butta Johnson only 1 of 12 in a 67-62 loss to Vermont. So they're going to have to figure that out. Off the bench, Ale Vasquez had 10. That was the second leading scorer for them. But still, not enough to get the job done versus Vermont. And in AAC play, Yak's going to have 22 and 15. But, if they're only getting 10 from Vasquez and 1 of 12 from Butta Johnson, UAB is not going to be able to win many games in the American straight up. Yaks can only take them so far. You can't have hero ball, especially with some of these teams that we saw. FAU, for example, 6 players in double figures in that one. Nico Moretti leads the way with 19 points for the Owls in that one. So we'll get into the FAU Indiana State game a little bit more. I was in attendance for that one. We'll talk that one at the end, but I want to go through some of the other games before we talk FAU here. Temple, they defeated Sacred Heart 81-70. Jamal Mashburn, in my opinion, is a perfect fit for the American Conference. A typical guard that can just really take over games. The difference is what's going to make Temple better, even with good guard play like they're going to have this year, is what they're going to be able to get out of their big men. Steve Settle has to play better. He played solid in that one against Sacred Heart, to be fair, but overall, Temple loses the rebound battle in that one, 40-34. Settle with 7 rebounds, 16 points, but the 7 rebounds, he got out rebounded by his matchup for Sacred Heart in that one. Bryce Johnson, their big man, in that one. They played small ball relatively, and he finished with 11 boards on 10 points, double-double for him, Sacred Heart. But overall, they just got to be better. Off the bench, Dylan Batty, the freshman from Dallas, Texas. He's 6'8". He brings size in there, along with the other freshman, Babatunde Duradola from Toronto. Both of them 6'8" guys for Temple. I think both of them, Temple's got some development here that could happen if they can hang on to those two and turn them into potential options for them down the rest of the season. Obviously, Mashburn's going to be a one-year rental for them, but I think they've got talent that can be developed. And I think Coach Fisher is the guy to do it in Temple. We saw them make that run at the end of the year last year. Don't know what occurred with that gambling scandal. Seemed to only involve Heisier Miller, so he's gone. But I think this Temple team's a team to stay. Temple tough. In my opinion, though, what's going to make them contend in the AAC, as I mentioned, Steve Settle has to step up, and Batunde Duradola and Batty off the bench, the 2 6'8" forward type roles, they're going to have to step up and be big as well. If Temple can get that alongside solid guard play all year, they can be a threat in this AAC, potentially make that tournament run as we saw UAB do last year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Temple I think their size will come down to whether or not settle. And as we mentioned, Duradola and Batty stepping up for them as well. If they can get that, though, I think Temple can cause problems. East Carolina over Northeastern State, 97-70. Another team with great guards. RJ Felton, we knew what he's capable of in the AAC. He puts up 22, but CJ Walker transferring from UCF didn't have too much of a role with the Knights last season, was kind of off the bench. I think he averaged 8.7 points per game. He finishes with 21 in that one. If Felton and Walker can work consistently side by side, East Carolina is going to have one of the best guard duos in the AAC, in my opinion. Coach Schwartz and company trying to, push ECU, get them into that tournament conversation. Again, I don't know if they have the non-conference schedule, but they've got talent to win that tournament. Some veteran guys. They got a 7-2 big man too in Sear Malonga, and I think if he steps up, he finished that game. They don't need him to score, but he had 7 rebounds and 2 blocks against Northeastern State. Obviously, that's a JUCO. You want him to do that against them, but if he can give them size like that, battling with AAC bigs, I think East Carolina is a potential team to watch for in this conference because they have the scoring from Felton and Walker, and I think if Malonga steps up to be, I want to say maybe a top 4 big in the AAC, East Carolina could cause some problems. I really do think they can. I'm trying to see. I wanted to see how Cam Hayes did. Cam Hayes finished with 10 points. 2 for 2 from downtown. No, Cam Hayes is going to be another critical piece for the Pirates. I think, alongside CJ Walker and RJ Felton, they're going to need a third guy to kind of step up. And it's going to be between him and the Temple transfer, Jordan Riley, for ECU. But I really like Hayes in this offense. I think he gives them that third best option behind Walker and Felton with a similar play style, explosiveness, can hit from downtown like Felton. He chipped in 4 assists as well. So I think this ECU team is real solid. They got a lot of bench play on that one. Obviously, they blew out. Check that. It wasn't Northeast State. It was North Carolina Wesleyan. My apologies. But nevertheless, they still got a lot of solid play off the bench. Malonga, he's going to have to be able to step into a starting role though against some of these big teams in the AAC like Memphis, FAU. Those two teams check in with some big guys, and they're going to be tough for some teams in the AAC to handle. But I think East Carolina's got a big man that can step in and handle down low against guys like Voki Titus for FAU, Dane Danger for Memphis. So we'll see. I like East Carolina, though, this year as well. I think they're a little bit more capable of Temple, in my opinion, of taking that step up. I think their size helps a lot. But Temple, though, as I mentioned, they've got the 2 developmental guys in Duradola and Batty. And both of these 2 teams, I mean, again, I like early on in the year, before anything's happened, there's a lot of potential on the plate for a lot of these teams. Tulane being another one. A lot of new pieces. They win 76-42 over Louisiana Christian. Maury Jordan, the freshman, with 18 points, 7 of 12 from the field. To me, they have Maki Hughes in football last year, win AAC Freshman of the Year. I think Maury Jordan is that type of guy in the AAC and hoops this year, especially with the lack of experience scoring for this Tulane team. The freshman comes in first game, scores 18 points on 4 boards, 7 of 12 from the field. I think he's going to be really good for this Tulane team. But to me, what I didn't like from Tulane in this game, Rowan Brumbaugh, only 2 of 10 from the field. He is a really key piece for this team. Really talented guard transfer in from Georgetown. A lot of confidence. I think he's very prideful of Tulane. His grandfather graduated from the university, played football there. He knows this fan base is what they're going to be there. They're going to be supporting this squad, and I think he's going to be a big piece for this team. First game struggles, got to get him going. But if him and Maury Jordan side by side can score, I think this Tulane team, again, like we mentioned with ECU and Temple, I think they got a chance to really make a run down the stretch. Overall, I think Tulane has something special, especially with a veteran like Greg Glenn down low. 11 and 4 in the starting role for the first time. I think he actually started one game last year with Tulane, so it's his second time in the starting lineup. 3 fouls though against LA Christian down low. Want to see him clean that up. He's a guy who doesn't have a ton of starting experience. Going to battle with some significant bigs in the AAC. My other highlight from Tulane, Caleb Banks, Indiana transfer, 6'8" guard, 14 points. 13 rebounds. I think Caleb Banks could cause serious problems for a lot of teams in the AAC, and he'll bring some of that high-flying action for Tulane that could get that building rocking. I think he's going to be a potential all-team type player in the AAC this year, just based off that one game. It might be a lot, but he looked really good. Just a flying guy, just moved well, and I think Tulane's got a shot this year as well to potentially be a lot better than expected. I don't know, NCAA tournament run. We'll see. It's a lot of new pieces in that locker room. We'll see how they mold throughout the year, but I like them to potentially, could make a CIT run, a CBI. We'll see. I like that, but I like them to have a solid year this year. Coach Rod Hunter should get them rolling. Getting into one of the losses, though, UAB loses 67-62 to Vermont. As we mentioned in the opener, if Yax Lendenborg cannot get scoring alongside him, UAB is not going to be able to win many games this year. Coach Kennedy, one of the best coaches in the AAC, but at the end of the day, I just do not know necessarily if he's got enough on this roster. If there's scoring struggles from their guards outside of Butta Johnson and Ale Vasquez, they need them to score, and if they can't, I don't necessarily know where that scoring is going to come from for UAB. Those three right there are going to be huge for them. Christian Coleman as well. He had 9 points, 8 boards against Vermont, but not in double figures. Only 3 of 5 from the field was solid, but limited at the same time. So they're going to need people to step up. If Butta and Ale struggle, and I think Bradley Azawiro, the St. Louis transfer, got a lot of playing time in that one. Didn't have a ton of success, finished with 5 points, but he averaged 12 a game last year for St. Louis in 22 games, 21 starts. St. Louis team that struggled, he's going to be wanting to get to the NCAA tournament. There's some fighting there off the bench for him for UAB. That's another guy who potentially could step up for this squad and help them down the stretch this year once he finds, his role in this system a little bit. But they've got some veteran pieces. Surprised Tony only played 1 minute. Did have 2 fouls in a short span. And didn't see the court again. So wonder if there was a potential injury concern there for him. Because he's a kind of a glue guy for that UAB team that's going to help them down the stretch as well. So not time to panic yet at UAB, although Vermont did go out and lose by 50 to Auburn. But I think that just says a lot more about Auburn than it does about Vermont UAB. But I do think UAB will be okay. Not time to panic yet, but they need to get some scoring from their guards. And they need to do it soon. They play tonight. Southern Miss, a lot of basketball in between those two teams. UAB checks in as 13.5-point favorites in that one. I think that's a game, that's a must-win, and that's a must-win by a lot of points. Get some start to get those statistics back in your favor, because once they start to go by the wayside, things can be a little tough to get back. So gotta get that in the right ship if you're Andy Kennedy and fast. UAB, though, they're preseason favorites for a reason. They have time to get it right, and who knows, maybe they make another crazy run in that tournament. Keep it on. No, Tulsa over Northeastern State, 82-68. They're in a tough position. Tulsa is. You lose PJ Haggerty, who was a stud for them last year. You develop him as a freshman, then he leaves. Kind of unfortunate, but you know what? They'll get it back on the right track as soon as they can. Good signs: Isaiah Barnes, 14 points; Keaston Willis, 17 points. Both of those guys going to be huge for Tulsa this year. Guy who I want to see step up for them, though, Matt Reed, the versatile big man down low, 7 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist on the day. He plays bigger than he is. He's only 6'9", but I think he can compete with a lot of bigs down low in the American. He's going to be key for Tulsa this year, trying to win some games in the AAC. Still think, though, it's going to be an uphill battle for them. But you know what? Coach Conkel's got those guys riled up. They've looked good at points in that game, allowed it to get a little closer than you want. They were up big, and then it kind of got a little closer. So we'll see what Tulsa's up to this year in the AAC, though. A big win in the AAC this week, in my opinion. Wichita State on the road over Western Kentucky, 91-84. That was a big one for them. Justin Hill, the Georgia transfer, 31 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 5'11" guard, playing a lot bigger than he is. Western Kentucky is a team that could contend for a CUSA title, and they win 91-84 on the road. That's a win you put on the resume right there if you're Wichita State, for sure. Xavier Bell off the bench with 17 points, 2 and 2. That's another guy for them that's going to be huge for them this year. If they can get Justin Hill in the starting unit, Xavier Bell off the bench consistently, this Wichita State team has a chance to be back. Coach Mills trying to get the Shockers back to the glory days. Again, the key, though, for me for Wichita State, going to be the presence of their big guy. Quincy Ballard had 10 points, 4 rebounds in the season opener, 6'10", big guy down low. Going to be the key for Wichita State winning games in the AAC is how he competes against guys a little bit taller than him, but he's got the heart for sure. So I like Wichita State 91-84 over Western Kentucky. Keep it on. UTSA 103-77 over Trinity. Primo Spears and Baba Miller having some fun in the AAC for sure. The FSU transfers. Baba Miller perfect with 13 points, 4 rebounds in that one. Primo Spears, 27 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds for UTSA over Trinity. Primo's going to be a good addition for Coach Clonch. I think he's going to develop him really solidly, as we saw him work with the guards at Alabama during his time there. UTSA is going to have good guard play this year for sure. But the question is, who's going to be their size? They're really lacking it down low. But I think they have the potential to be all right, in the AAC, especially with a lot of the other teams lacking size as well. Marcus Millender, 5'11" guard for them. He plays a lot. Again, there's a lot of guards in the AAC that play a lot bigger than they are. Millender's one of them. Finishes with 7 assists, 3 rebounds on the day. And then Jaquan Scott, 6'8" forward for them. He was their guy down low, had 16 points, 6 rebounds. I think UTSA will have the physicality to battle with teams despite the little bit of height loss they have, only starting big men is at 6'8" and Scott. So like UTSA, good first game for Coach Clonch. And then closing it out, Charlotte, 88-79 over Presbyterian. The biggest addition, in my opinion, for Charlotte this offseason has to be Giancarlo Rosado. And in game 1, he pays off. 16 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds on the day for G. He led that team. Bobby Braswell, in his 7th year of college basketball, 18 points, 2 rebounds as well. Nick Graves, 13. Rich Rolfe, though, who didn't play a lot last year for Charlotte, stuck around in a starting role now, 15 points, 3 of 5. You wonder where the scoring is going to come when Lukai Patterson dipped out. Well, it's there. It's between Rolfe, Rosado, Braswell, Graves. I think this team is going to be really, really solid under Coach Firm. Jayshon Thomas, the junior, JUCO transfer, had 18 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists in that game. They lose the rebound battle 31-21 to Presbyterian, though. Rosado wasn't the most, dominating guy down low. But I think they will be all right. Rosado's going to have to kind of step up, be their big man down low, but I think he's capable, and I think Charlotte wins some games this year in the AAC. Again, there's a lot of teams that I think could make that UAB-type run. We shall see, though. Memphis 83, 75 over Missouri. Game, a lot of people were talking about Memphis, some offseason issues. Tyreek Smith departs the program. Doesn't matter. Penny finds a way to win. They were down at halftime. Penny apparently heard boos at some point in that game. Memphis fans seem to believe that the fans were booing the refs, saying they would never boo their team unless something crazy was happening. They were down at halftime, but it wasn't that bad. And they came out in the second half and they played real well. Haggerty scores 22 of 25 after the break, and they win that game 83-75. It wasn't really close in the second half. Haggerty showing what he is capable of, the former Tulsa player, as we mentioned, with 25.6 rebounds, 5 assists in that one. Tyrese Hunter with 14 points as well. Colby Rogers with 10 points in the starting role. But what I like to see off the bench, PJ Carter, 3 of 6 on his three-pointers, though. That's real solid. And Musa Cisse with 14 points, 7 rebounds off the bench. I think this Memphis team has a chance to be really, really dangerous, and they've got the non-conference schedule. They could be an at-large team in this conference tournament. Or not this kind in the NCAA tournament. I think they've got a chance this year, though, to potentially win that conference tournament. And if they do, that could make the AAC a one-bid league if FAU were to struggle. I think FAU and Memphis are really the only two teams with the non-conference schedule. North Texas has some key games in there. I think they could potentially make a run, but we shall see. Solid first debut game, though, for the new crew in Memphis. Coach Hardaway trying to get back to what he was doing and winning at Memphis after a down year last year. South Florida loses a tough one, 83-98 to Florida, one of the best teams in the SEC, in my opinion, this year. Tough one for South Florida, but a lot to like in that one. Jameel Reynolds down low, 6'11", big man, 17.6 boards. He's going to be one of the better big men in the AAC. USF has the size and the guard play. Kaysen Jennings, 15 points, a rebound and an assist in that one. He finishes 3 of 6 from downtown, does Jennings. I really do think that this South Florida team is going to play through the spirit of AAR this season. A lot to like in that first game. Jaden Reed only 3 of 8 from the field. If he gets up going how he's capable of, I really think this USF team makes a run this year and causes some problems come tournament time because they are playing for a lot. They've got a lot of talent to go with it as well. Tough first loss in game one. They kept it close at times. They let it have. Lose ultimately by 15, but a lot to be proud of if you're South Florida. And then going into the Tuesday games, Rice 77-70 over FIU. Not the best game if you're Rice, but still a lot to like in that one, though. You do come back. You do hold on to that lead. And Caden Powell, the Wyoming transfer, with 17 points, 11 rebounds, does not miss a shot from the field, 7 of 7 from the field. If Rice is going to compete this year, though, Alim Hasenovich has to be better. 9 points, only 3 of 8 from the field. If he gets up to what he's capable of doing, especially from downtown, only 2 of 6, he's going to need to shoot a little bit more for the Owls of Rice. But if he can, between Powell, him, and Brodna, I really do think Rice is going to be better than a lot of people expect this year. The South Carolina Upstate transfer, Trey Brodna, senior veteran leaders on this Rice team, new to each other, but I think Rice has a chance this year to be an AAC contender. It's going to take a lot, though. They have a chance, as does all these teams, but with Rice, it's a very tough place to win. But you know what? Coach Rob Lanier comes in there fired up after getting fired from SMU. I love that storyline. I think he's got something to prove. Wants to show the world why he should be. He is a really good college basketball coach, but he wants to show the world after SMU, in my opinion, unfairly fired him. But hey, that's life. And then the final Tuesday game, North Texas 80-63 over Evansville. North Texas got the scoring this year. Atin Wright comes over. I liked his game. He hooped last year a lot against Evansville with Drake. Was one of Drake's solid players last year. Finished with 14.1 points per game last year. 16 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist in the season opener for him in this one. In my opinion, though, off the bench, they get solid scoring. from Jonathan Massey, the Longwood transfer. He was a solid piece for them last year, and he's going to come off the bench and give them solid height and length and scoring for the Mean Green. Jasper Floyd, 23 points. For the Tampa native transfer from Fairfield. Had a big, solid year last year at Fairfield, but 23 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists in the first game of the year for North Texas is huge for them. And then the game that I attended, FAU Indiana State, the Owls showed that the moves they made this offseason were not just random pieces. Every move was calculated. They get 40 bench points. Nico Moretti leads the way with 19 off the bench. It wasn't Ken Evans, the SWAC player of the year, or Leland Walker or Kiki Tandy, who led Eastern Kentucky and Jack State last year. It's Nico Moretti, who played in, I believe, less than 20 games at Illinois last year, averaged less than 2 points per game, had some solid moments for the Illini last year, but didn't play a ton. First game with FAU, plays a solid role and has a huge game. I think FAU has the size, the shooting, the defense, everything you need to contend in the AAC. Teams are going to be coming for him, though, and everything that FAU, has built up here in recent years. Teams are going to, come into this environment wanting to win, especially at home games once AAC play starts. But John Jacobs wants to get back to the NCAA tournament as well, and they're going to be looking to do it. They got a huge game versus UCF coming up on Tuesday. That game's going to tell a lot about what this team is capable of long-term and large-scale. So, like to see what FAU does against UCF and against Michigan State as well, potentially Miami, Oklahoma State in that non-conference schedule for the Owls. So we're going to take a quick break right here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network for just a minute. When we come back, we'll talk Army cracking the CFP poll, but does that really reflect the best football team in the American? I'm not really sure. I think, Tulane's got to have their conversation right in there. So we'll talk about that after a quick break. If you missed the first half, going through all the games of the first games of the AAC slate for each team. Lots to like for a lot of teams. Make sure to follow the American Conference basketball this year. A lot to like. A lot of good storylines, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a fun basketball year. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Welcome back, folks, here on Inside the AAC. So, as we mentioned, the College Football Playoff released their official poll. Army checks in at 25. I think that's a fair ranking for them. I'm surprised, though, they potentially weren't at 23. I'm, a little bit of the SEC bias. Mizzou's been a little underwhelming this year. I would have liked to potentially see Army at 23, Tulane checking in at 25, because I believe what I believe is the AAC championship between Army and Tulane, I think Tulane comes out on top in that one. I do. I think John Summerall and that team is hungry. They are hungry, and I think Darian Mensah wants to win the AAC as a freshman quarterback. Army's going to come into that game prepared. They are, but Tulane's got a lot to prove, and I still potentially think Boise, gets that G5 playoff spot. Unfortunately for the AAC, I don't see Boise State losing too much down the stretch, but anything could happen. Anything could happen, and that's why I think it's important. Tulane wins out and wins out in a big way, and if they do, with their non-conference schedule that they played some tough teams. If Boise State were to lose a game, I think there's a conversation that's had in that CFP ranking room. I think there's some conversation that puts Tulane, should Boise State lose down the stretch, over them, even with 2 losses. I do. I think Tulane's got a lot to play for this year, and I think if they win out the way that they're capable of, I think Tulane could surprise a lot of people and sneak into that college football playoff. They've played really well this year. They've got a very diverse attack with Mensah at the helm and Maki Hughes in the backfield. I really think Tulane's got a chance. And if they beat Army in the AAC championship and Boise loses a game, I think Tulane makes the college football playoff as the G5 bid. But as I mentioned, it's going to be a tough thing for Boise to lose a game. Ashton Jeanty, one of the best running backs I've seen in college football in a while, and they got a lot to play for. So we shall see. I do like Army at 25, but as I mentioned, Mizzou, I think Tulane should have snuck in there. Army deserves to be higher ranked than Tulane right now, but I think when it's all said and done, Tulane will end up being higher ranked than them. And like I said, if Boise State loses one, Tulane's right in there. So that is my thoughts on the Tulane Army debate. Taking a look at this AAC football slate this week. Real quick before we get out of here, we're followed up. We're back to back here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. If you were tuning in before, you heard Back to the Dugout with Toby Schulman. Coming up next, License to Steal with legendary South Florida radio host Jeff Defo DeForest. So make sure to check that out. Defo on the air. Toby produces that one as well. You might catch him on the air. If Defo's feeling nice, but big game in the AAC tonight. FAU 2-6 taking on ECU 4-4. It's do or die time for the Owls. If they lose this one, bowl game out of reach. There's pretty tough to accomplish at 2-6. Got to win 4 in a row, but starts here on the road. East Carolina Pirates 7.5-point favorites in this one. With the way FAU struggled defensively and the way Kate Hauser and this offense have really seemed to come around for Blake Harrell, it's going to be a tough uphill battle for FAU in this one. Raji Harris, one of the best backs in the AAC, could have a big day against an FAU defense that struggled. But East Carolina's defense hasn't been great either, and I think, potentially another big game could be in store for Cam Fancher. He's thrown for 300 yards in 2 out of his last 3, but if they're going to win this game, they're going to need that. They're going to need C.J. Campbell, Zoo Mobley on the ground doing their thing, but the defense has to step up, put pressure on Kate Hauser. If they can pressure him, potentially limit Harris a little bit, Owls got a chance in this one, but I'm taking ECU in this one. I think ECU does win this one, unfortunately, and end the Owls bowl game. Hopes. I don't know if 7.5 is going to cover. I think it's a close game, but FAU hasn't proven they're able to win on the road, win in close scenarios late. We'll see. The talent on this team is there to win these games, but I just don't know if it's going to happen this season. So some other games to watch: Rice versus Memphis. Memphis trying to bounce back in a big way. They no longer control their destiny. They're going to need to blow out Rice, in my opinion. But Rice just got their first win under head coach Pete Alomar interim. They're trying to push for a bowl as well. They were dead in the water at 2-6. They win last week over a crazy delayed game over Navy. I don't know if Rice has enough to beat Memphis, but it would be interesting to see, especially if Memphis players are down in the dumps knowing a college football playoff spot, AAC title could be slipping out of their grasps. Other games to watch this week, Navy, South Florida. Navy comes in after that tough loss to Rice. South Florida comes in off that big win against FAU. I think South Florida comes in with some serious firepower in this one. Bryce Archie's feeling it at quarterback now. Huge run game back-to-back in back-to-back games for South Florida. Naquan Wright really showing what he's capable of. If the USF defense is able to adjust their, and stop this Navy sling T offense, I do not think Navy's defense is going to be able to slow down in South Florida the way they're operating right now. Navy's 3-point favorites in this one. Give me South Florida money line in this one. I think they defend the home turf, defeat Navy, and look to finish the season strong. Last one for me. Last one to watch, UAB, UConn, Temple, Tulane. Unfortunately, I think Temple and UConn, or excuse me, I think Tulane and UConn handle business in that one. But the one to watch, North Texas versus Army. Army heads to Denton for a battle with the Mean Green checking in as 4-point favorites. Is Army. North Texas has the firepower to hurt potentially an Army defense that, they don't have a ton of athleticism back there. They just play and they do their job and they do it well. But DT Sheffield is real tough cover for anybody in the AAC, and I think Army included. But Bryson Daly returns in this one, and is Army now ranked in the college football poll. I think they come out in this one fired up. I think with Daly back at the helm, I think this team defeats North Texas on their home field. I think they cover -4, win by a touchdown, and can keep proving that they have a chance to really make some noise if they were given a shot in the college football playoff. Because you put a Service Academy against a team from the SEC, Big 10, Big 12 who hasn't played anyone like that all year, could cause problems. But Army's got work to do. They're going to have to defeat North Texas this week, win out, and handle Tulane potentially in an AAC title game. I think they win this one. We'll see if the rest is possible. As I mentioned, I think Tulane in the end proves that they are the best team in the AAC. We shall see. It starts tonight with FAU ECU on ESPN2, 8 p.m. Owls look to defeat the Pirates and keep their season afloat. We shall see if it's possible. In terms of the hoop slate, a couple games in action tonight, as we mentioned. UAB takes on Southern Miss in a game that at this point for them is almost a must-win early on in the year. Can't play around, and you got to win in a big way. While North Texas takes on Wayland University, NAIA school, another game where they should be able to handle pretty well. And then tomorrow, FAU Coastal Georgia, Temple Monmouth in the Jersey Jam from Monmouth in New Jersey. USF's Charleston in what's going to be a great game. Coach Chris Mack versus interim head coach Ben Fletcher. That should be a great basketball game on Flow Sports, unfortunately. So, if you don't have a subscription on that one, make sure to check Stream East on that one. And then lastly, tomorrow, UL Monroe takes on Tulane at Tulane. That's a game where Tulane, in my opinion, you want to see Rowan Brumbaugh have a bounce-back game. Tulane wins that one big. FAU should handle Coastal Georgia. Monmouth could give Temple some problems, potentially. But we'll see. Temple looked good in that first game. Jamal Mashburn, really talented guard for the Owls this year. I think USF comes out. They beat Charleston. Tough loss to Florida. Charleston had a big win in their first game of the year against Southern Illinois. But I just don't know if USF's going to come out and drop 2 straight. They're playing for a lot right now. Kason Jennings looked really, really good. And I think Jaden Reed has a bounce back in this one, shows people why he's got the potential to be one of the better guards in the AAC this year. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the AAC this week. If you missed the first half of the show, we go through all the first games for every team in the AAC. I give some highlights, some people who I think have a chance to be talented in the AAC. I think every team in the AAC this year, minus a few, have a real shot to compete for that AAC title. A lot of teams where they could be fired up come the end of the season, come tournament time. Folks, stay right here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network after I am gone, because in 10 minutes, Defo is on the air, and he's giving you a license to steal with the best picks across all different types of sports. We got pro sports, got college sports, right here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Get your picks on License to Steal with Jeffrey Defoe DeForest. Make sure to check that out, folks, right here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Thanks for tuning in to Inside the AAC. I'm Robbie LaStella. We'll be back next Tuesday, potentially from inside UCF's basketball arena with a little pregame show for the Owls Knights right here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Take care, folks. Have a good one. I'm Robbie Listella. Stay right here for License to Steal.